Hello and welcome to the programme. The mutual withdrawal of forces from the frontline areas near Zolote and Petrivske has been postponed indefinitely. This is according to the Ukrainian delegation at the Minsk Trilateral Contact Group. Russian-led troops continue to violate the ceasefire and have not withdrawn heavy machine guns, tanks and artillery. To discuss the situation on the front line, we are joined in the studio today by journalist Oleksiy Matsuka. Thank you very much for coming in, Oleksiy.
With pleasure, Tom. Hi.
For the residents in Zolote and Petrivske, this is a huge area of uncertainty now. For people who perhaps haven't been following the story, can you explain more about why this is so important, not just for the settlements there, but all across the front line?
Yeah, we have a lot of interpretation from politicians and different groups in Ukraine, and it depends on how you see the information from Zolote, for example, because if some audience they see information on the very specific TV channels who invited politicians firstly. But yesterday I was in the Slavyansk and I heard questions from the fields. People want to see the peace-building plan from Zelensky and to know how Ukrainian authorities will decide this question. Because now I'm a professional journalist and even me and my colleagues, we don't know exact plan. What does Zelensky and his team decide with this question? And we wait for Normandy, this format, and we wait for final decision maybe, because we heard from Pristaika that he's very, very pragmatical in the question of peace-building process, and he can't be as a part of different conversation platforms and dialogues every time. So they find the decision, and we know about 3 different plans for that: reintegration, frozen, or something else. But I can't say more about that.
Really.
Yes, it's a lot of speculation and manipulation from politicians now around this topic. Because I try to understand what happened from the people who face-to-face with the residents every day. It is SMM OSCE firstly. It is an independent monitoring mission like Prolisok they based in Slavyansk and have 10 quarters around the line front and get the information from average people. And they say that Ukraine can implement peace-building plan if we have this plan, because we have all possibilities for that.
So you need the plan first of all.
Yes, we need very exact plan for people and communicate this plan.
And of course, the problem usually is the lack of communication, because the people who live in the frontline areas, they believe that if the Ukrainian military withdraw, then they'll be left out in the open. There is a possibility that the Russian-led forces on the other side of the front line could advance, and then...
Yeah, and the other problem is Russia propaganda that influence on their minds and demanded from them to be as a part of Russian world, and their interpretation for that also important part of this topic with in the situation in grey zone.
It was quite interesting to read a couple of international newspapers who were covering this potential peace plan and the protests that we've seen in Kiev over the past couple of weeks. And I remember The Guardian, they wrote something like the nationalists and the far right are protesting, which again is not real, it's actually a false narrative, and that people oppose the peace plan. Actually, that's not the case. People don't oppose peace, but they oppose capitulation. So do you think this is capitulation, Zelensky's plan so far?
It's preciously in these very important words that we use about this situation now, what we have in Ukraine. Because capitulation, it's like a word from this narrative junta. That Russia propaganda use. And now some politicians in Ukraine use very toxic words to describe situation in our country, because peace-building plan and capitulation, it's absolutely different tracks to describe the situation in our society. So I don't agree. I don't use this word capitulation, and also I don't use the narrative about that only nationalistic groups joined to the meetings in the center.
Like if you were there, you would know that that's not true.
But it's different people, and they have different views on the situation, because not only who represent political parties or nationalistic groups or even radical groups, but a lot of people with liberal position and even supporters, Zelensky supporters, who joined during this weekend to the meetings.
Yeah, and it's a very complicated topic, because often people put together stopping the war and reintegrating Donbas, and they think that this should be one plan, but others say that it should be separate, stopping the war first and then thinking about reintegration. This should be another theme, another thing that has to be tackled. So how do you see the reintegration of Donbas?
You know, it's complicated as usual, but I want to mention the data from last sociological research that organized from the Berlin-based organization, and they said that in the separatist-held areas of the Donbas, about 55% of the respondents expressed a preference for being part of the Ukrainian state. It's important to understand it, because this is very significant for the next round of negotiations, not just only from Ukraine side, but also from Russia side, because they also need to know that our citizens who live in occupied area, majority of them want to be a part of our state. So Zelensky team and his team, they need to know very specific context of this conflict, and especially what people say in their front line, because they people feel every day these results of war.
And what do people think? Obviously, you've spoken to these people who live along the front line, where the shelling happens daily, where there's sniper attacks. A lot of their houses have been severely damaged or completely destroyed. What do they think is going to happen?
They wait when Ukraine come back on the in full areas, area, because they feel sometimes that Ukraine lost them, because Ukraine refused from the pension system for them, and also announced this blockade against their territories and others, and people feel it because they think that it is a Ukrainian policy project about Donbas. And it is, as you mentioned, it's not enough communication way for current government, and I think that previously government also, they ignore some humanitarian track and focus just only on the political track and security. Of course, three tracks are important, but now, as I see and I feel that from the people, this average people, for them, most important, it is a humanitarian track. They need water, electricity, and others.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting to talk about the broader political repercussions of Zelensky's path to try and bring peace, permanent peace, to the Donbas. We have the Steinmeier formula. What's your view on the Steinmeier formula?
The position from Russia, they have very rest to the exact chain of Minsk agreement. And in my opinion, Steinmeier formula, it is some flexible position for Ukraine, because we can change 1, 2, 3 and start from 4, for example. And we can activate humanitarian track firstly, after we can focus on the political track and security parallel. So in my opinion, Steinmeier formula, it is a good chance for Ukraine to implement Minsk agreement.
But do you think that the French and German parts of the Normandy format would support this, because they know that if there is a possibility that sanctions could be reduced on Russia, then that's also beneficial to them?
Yeah, but we don't know exact position from Germany and Paris before Normandy, and as I see the situation, they prepare something on the table during Normand format. So now I don't want to give some explanations about position France or Germany or especially sanctions list. But you know that Pristaika, he was on the Luxembourg this week, and he presented something for Mogherini, and we saw her reaction for this plan, and maybe we soon know about that also in Ukraine.
Yeah. What do you think about the special status possibility for the Donbas?
It is like not special status, but special regime for that territory. Yes, as usual, very important words that we use in the how to describe this, because special status, it's not about autonomy. It is about citizens for local, very local level. Because Minsk agreement, it's not about courts or prosecutors. It is about municipal level of estimation the situation, you know. So now, when Parliament will prepare this document and give the different voices for that, we can estimate it. But if you know, 13 October in Mariupol, Mr. Zelensky and his team gave them experts, media, and different humanitarian missions to discuss about this document also. And it will be interesting event for us, for me as a journalist, and also for your audience, I hope.
Yes, we'll certainly have to keep an eye out for that. But I mean, when we look at the plans for the Donbas, it's going to take years and years to rebuild. Obviously, if there are elections in the occupied Donbas, it can't be guaranteed, although the OSCE does monitor the situation on the ground. They can't, for their own rules, call Russian soldiers. So there's obviously a risk that if there was any election happening, then there could be threats, there could be intimidation.
Of course, yes, but it is all because we don't have exact plan from office president about this, and I can explain you more if I have paper document about this all tracks. But now what I feel and what I see from stakeholders, that they prepare like something like Zelensky formula. It is of course populism, because they need to approve this from the foreign partners and others, but they try to communicate this with different stakeholders inside Ukraine and with the opposition especially. And also important things that a peace building plan of Zelensky and peace building Medvedchuk, it's different plans also, because Zelensky every time repeat that he will not surrender Ukraine and he save our independence. But in Medvedchuk plan, we know about direct negotiation with the self-proclaimed authorities, for example, and other things.
Which is basically Russia.
Yes. They are very same with Russia rhetorics.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for explaining more about this, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was Oleksiy Matsuka, a journalist. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more here on UATV.